Well, how are they going to do this? How are they going to implement these mixture of worldviews and bring about this worldview revolution all across the globe? Not just in America, but all over the globe. How are they going to do it? I believe one way they've set out to do it was through the United Nations, and is through the United Nations. And in 1992, the United Nations sponsored the Earth Summit in Rio. One of the people that headed that up was a gentleman, I use that word loosely, Maurice Strong, who said, quote, "Isn't the only hope for the planet that the industrialized civilizations collapse? Isn't it our responsibility to bring that about?" Getting an idea of where Maurice Strong comes from? Well, Bill Clinton went on in 93 to establish the Presidential Commission on Sustainable Development here in America. What is sustainable development? What really is sustainable development? Well, before I break it down for you, look at this quote that comes from the UN aligned. This is a commission on global governance. They're very closely connected to the UN. Here's what they said about global governance. The concept of sustainable development, which is another word for global governance, is now widely used and accepted as a framework within which all countries, rich and poor, should operate. The aspect that particularly concerns us is the global governance implications. So sustainable development is a way to promote global governance over all the globe, bringing all these ideas together, the world's religions together, capitalism, socialism, mixing them together and bringing in global governance through what they call sustainable development. You better get used to this term, sustainable development. How many of you, for you tonight, this is the first time you've ever heard the word sustainable development? Can I see your hands? Well, get used to it, get very familiar with it, call into talk shows, tell them about sustainable development. What's it based on? What's it built upon? Well, I would say it's built upon these ideas or these worldviews. Cosmic humanism, pagan spirituality, New Age, cosmic humanism. Secular humanism. What's the difference between the two? A cosmic humanist believes that there is a spiritual world. You die and you continue through the process of your soul repeatedly passing from one body to another at the point of death into your good karma. Your good deeds outweigh your bad karma. You can go up, you can go down. But they believe this natural world is really an illusion. They believe in the spiritual world. The secular humanist doesn't believe in the spiritual world. They believe you die, that's it, life is over. But they're both humanists, just a little varying difference there. The other worldview would be radical environmentalism. Then communitarianism, which we've defined as the third way. Cultural Marxism, which you now know as political correctness, coming from the Frankfurt School and those four foundational thinkers. And then postmodernism, the concept that truth and reality are created by man, not by God. This is what it's built on. But what does it include? What is the package? I mean, the sustainable development includes what? What are they wanting to do? Well, when you hear sustainable development, I want you to know that tonight you're learning for the first time sustainable development means everything that you and I disagree with. It is the antithesis of the Christian worldview versus humanism. Sustainable development means abortion on demand. It means population control, gun control, social justice, global governance, new world order, socialized medicine, social welfare programs, the elimination of private property, the elimination of national sovereignty, the elimination of parental authority, the elimination of free market capitalism. This is all a part of sustainable development. It's education to serve the masses, public housing, redistribution of wealth, legal positivism, which is moral relativism applied to the law. It's hate crime laws that criminalize Christianity. Now, you think, wait a minute. Hate crime laws that criminalize Christianity? Is that going to happen? Yeah, we've already got the hate crime laws, don't we? But are there really people in high places today, other than just the president, that have such animosity toward Christians? Well, yes, there are, sadly. One of them is a guy by the name of John Holdren. John Holdren is Obama's science czar. He wrote a book with the Ehrlichs a few years ago called Eco-Science. And in that book, on page 807, this is what John Holdren, Obama's science czar, and the Ehrlichs wrote, quote, "The Christian concept of life in this world is voiced by St. Paul that, quote, here we have no abiding city, end quote. For example, conceivably could help explain why some people show rather little concern for what? The long-term future of the global environment or for the well-being of future generations." So in other words, Christians are responsible for the ecological crisis we're facing worldwide. Christians. because of our view that our home is not this world. Heaven is our home. But that doesn't mean we don't believe in stewardship, does it? Genesis, God gives us stewardship over the earth. But they believe, because we believe our citizenship is ultimately in heaven. We really have dual citizenship for this time being, but our ultimate citizenship is in heaven. Therefore, you and I don't really care about this world, and therefore we're to blame for the ecological crisis. This has also been picked up by Lynn White Jr., writing, quote, "What we do about ecology depends on our ideas of the man-nature relationship. More science and more technology are not going to get us out of the present ecological crisis until we find a what? New religion." What do you think that's going to be? Or rethink our old ones, as we now recognize somewhat over a century ago, science and technology joined to give mankind powers which are out of control. If so, Christianity bears a huge burden of guilt. Our science and our technology have grown out of Christian attitudes toward man's relationship to nature. No new set of basic values has been accepted in our society to displace those of Christianity. Hence, we shall continue to have a worsening ecological crisis until we reject the Christian axiom that nature has no reason for existence save to serve man. And how is it that you and I are responsible for the ecological crisis as Christians? He says, by destroying pagan animism. What is that? The belief of spirit beings in nature. Have you seen Avatar? Don't waste your money. If you haven't seen Avatar, I'll tell you what it is. Spirit beings in nature. It's New Age. It's pagan spirituality. It's Romans 1:25. They exchanged the truth of God for the lie and worshiped and served creation rather than the Creator who's blessed forevermore. It's reincarnation. It's spirit beings within nature. We, as Christians, says this author, are responsible for the destruction of pagan animism, spirit beings within nature. Thus, he goes on to say, quote, Christianity made it possible to exploit nature in a mood of indifference to the feelings of natural objects. The spirits in natural objects, which formerly protected nature from man, evaporated. And the ecological crisis is your fault. It's my fault. It's those Christians with their worldview. What is this whole sustainable development's philosophy? It's cultural Marxism. What again is cultural Marxism? You know it as political correctness. What they say their goal was when they came to America with cultural Marxism? Number 1, destruction of Christianity. 2, chaos. 3, take the chaos and roll from cultural Marxism to straight Marxism, which is socialism. So the philosophy is cultural Marxism. The process is sustainable development. And the goal? The religion of globalism. Now, what are the titles of those that are promoting this worldview revolution? The people that promote this, they would be wearing titles like a Fabian socialist, which we've already defined. A neo-Marxist. Why neo? Why do I use the word neo? Neo means new. Why are they a new Marxist? Because they're not going about revolution the old way. Remember what Herbert Marcuse said? The old way of revolutions failed. Now it is a diffuse and disintegrate the system. So it's a new way of bringing about a revolution. So they're neo-Marxists. They're a new kind of Marxist. They're New Agers. They're communists. They're internationalists. They're communitarians. You could call them a collectivist or a statist or a progressive or a globalist. These are all titles that people that promote sustainable development, all these things that we talked about, abortion on demand, gun control, the elimination of private property, the elimination of parental authority, hate crime legislation. These are what all these folks promote. This is the titles they wear. Now, what is sustainable development going to lead to? It's going to lead to a world government. It's going to lead to a world socialist economy. It's going to lead to a one world religion. Does the Bible say that's going to happen? We're going to have a one world religion, a one world economy, a one world leader, a one world government? Absolutely. And what else would it lead to? It will lead to financially milking the middle class. It'll lead to financially milking the middle class. You see, the cultural elite up here really disdain you and I. And they also disdain something else, and it's called hard work. They don't want to work hard. They want to live on your hard work. It's really pretty much what Marx said. Karl Marx said we get up in the morning, we go out, we do a little fishing, and after we fish a little bit, we come home, we have some lunch. Then in the afternoon, we go out hunting. Then we come home, we have some dinner, we have some sex, we go to bed, and the next day it starts all over. That's life. And how do we do it? On the back of the middle class, who are the ones really working. We're just really into hedonism and pleasure. And what did Marx say? My goal is to dethrone God and destroy capitalism. And we're going to do it on the back of the middle class. So we'll let them work and we'll milk them and we'll take the cream. The elite will take the cream and live off that cream, and then we'll give the rest of it to the lower class, and by giving the rest of it to the lower class, that will keep them voting for the elite and keep the elite in power. Is that exactly what's happening in America, folks? Yes, thank you. You're awake. Whittaker Chambers wrote a book, The Witness. And on page 616, he was a communist, and he flipped over and started writing against communism. And on page 616 of his book, The Witness, Whittaker Chambers said this: in the United States, the working class are Democrats, the middle class are Republicans, and the upper class are communists. Sure, absolutely. Have you ever heard of George Soros? All right. Socialist? Communist? Have you ever heard of Bill Gates? What's he funding? UN global stuff, right? Sustainable development, radical environmentalism. And I could keep naming. Have you ever heard of Ted Turner and his support of the UN? Is he not, what he's saying not true? The working class, you're Democrats. The middle class or the independents are your Republicans. And the upper class are your communists. You're neo-Marxists, you're Fabian socialists, you're globalists, you're statists, you're progressives, whatever title you want to give them. That's really what he's saying. A gentleman who writes for our website at worldviewweekend.com has been fighting sustainable development for years. His name is Henry Lamb. And he gives us examples of what sustainable development will really mean for you and I. This is what he wrote in an article on our website at worldviewweekend.com. He said, the King County, Washington plan in Washington State, where they implemented sustainable development, for example, limits the freedom of property owners to use only 35% of their land while imposing the requirements that 65% of the land be left to its natural condition. Folks, let me ask you something. Is it really your land if you can only use 35% of it and 65% of it you got to pay the taxes for, but you can't touch it? No. What is that? Is that straight socialism? No, because you get to use 35% of it. Is it straight capitalism? No, because you can't use 65% of it. What is it? Communitarianism, third way, a little bit of both. A little bit of both. We're not going to go full socialist. We're going to go a little mixture. Why do we going to go a little mixture of socialism with capitalism, the third way, communitarianism, which we saw that Bill Clinton and Tony Blair are promoting? Why are we going that way? Because they need to keep milking the middle class. They need you to keep working and producing so they can live off the cream, disperse the rest of the lower income, and then that keeps them bribed to keep putting the upper class into power. He goes on to say in Houston County, Wisconsin, where I just was 2 weeks ago, and when I was mentioning this, people are sitting there in La Crosse, Wisconsin, shaking their head. Yes, they know this is true. Where they've done sustainable development in Houston County, Wisconsin, the plan limits individual freedom to build no more than one home on a 40-acre parcel. So if you've got a 40 acres and you want to have your house, and then you decide you want to build a house for maybe your daughter and her husband and children to live in to take care of you in your old age, sorry, you can't do that. Is it really a 100% free market if you can only build one house for every 40 acres? No. And this is what sustainable development does. And how does it carry it out? Well, what happens is your elected officials, and this is going all over the country, your elected officials give authority to these councils, these so-called vision councils. And these vision councils are empowered by the elected officials to start setting up these ideas, these plans, these sustainable development plans. And therefore, your freedom is being taken from you by a group of unelected bureaucrats. Your elected bureaucrats are giving their authority to another group of unelected bureaucrats who then set up this plan, sustainable development with vision councils all across the country. And their goal is to balance the rights of individuals against the needs of the community. Kind of like Karl Marx, each according to his need, each according to his ability, each according to his need. Will balance your individual liberty against that of the whole, collectivism. And what did he say? How did he close that, by the way? As determined by a non-elected group of what? Communitarians. What does he mean by that? That's those group, the third way. The editors of Empower for Sustainable Development toward Operational Strategies wrote this. They explained how they're going to do this. Would you be shocked it's one of the four institutions I mentioned earlier, education? They're going to use education as the mechanism to indoctrinate a whole generation and then some into acceptance that this is the way it needs to be. They said education has been advanced as significant in bringing about changes in attitudes, behavior, beliefs, and values. Folks, those are all effective objectives. Where's the cognitive? They're going to change people's attitudes, behavior, beliefs, and values in order to redirect behavior and values towards institutional change for what? Sustainable development. There is a need to investigate strategic options in relations to educational philosophies. So education is going to be a main goal, a main concentration of those in sustainable development to get a whole generation and then the next generation willing to accept this new form of government, this revolution.